Hello and welcome to the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast. The intention of this podcast is to open your mind, get curious about yourself and connect to the power you hold within. I am your host, Karen Maloney, an inside-out coach, helping you to believe in yourself and manifest your desires. Check out the podcast, available on all platforms, and go to my website, www.karenmaloney.com for all info. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's me, Karen Maloney, and thanks for tuning in for another episode. As always appreciative to have you here, to have you join, to have you share. And I've got another wonderful conversation for you today. So joining me today, my guest is Bob Doyle. And Bob is best known as a featured expert in the film and the book, The Secret. He now focuses his coaching and training on neuroplasticity and your ability to rewire your brain so that you literally become the person who creates the results you want in life without having to adopt any unusual belief system. He has been teaching these principles through programs, live events, podcasts, live streams, coaching, writing, and even virtual reality since 1998. He is driven by his passion for creative self-expression, and his work is heavily focused on helping people decide who they want to be and how they want to express themselves. And it was a pleasure having Bob join me for this episode, and he talks about his own journey to the law of attraction and ultimately being invited to partake in The Secret, and also how his journey has evolved more and focusing more on neuroplasticity since then. And in this episode, he shares and talks about the importance of having a vision that is non-negotiable when it comes to making lasting change and committing and seeing it through, and how our brain is plastic, and basically no matter what is already in there, we can do new things, we can become a new person, we can learn new things, and we can change. But it takes the practice and it takes the discipline and it takes the repetition and moving through discomfort and all those sorts of things in order to make it lasting. So Bob shares so much on that, and also how to move through high emotions or triggers, how we can release them. And he also talks about how we don't have to have something in order to be it. And that's a really important point as well that he will come to in this conversation as well. So lots to take from this episode, and I really like Bob's clear, concise way of sharing things as well and breaking them down more simply, maybe to help you understand better. So again, lots in this episode. And if you want to find out more on Bob's work or the quiz that he talks about towards the end of the conversation that he has created, you can go to meetbobdoyle.com. But also I will have links to everything from the show notes on my website, karenmaloney.com, and click the podcast section. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining for another episode. Today I have Bob Doyle joining me, who some of you may know. He was a featured expert on The Secret. So first of all, you're very welcome, Bob, and thanks for joining today.
Yeah, totally my pleasure, Karen.
Yes, excited to talk to you today and delve in. And maybe if you just share a little bit on your background for anyone who may not know about your work in the field of law of attraction and The Secret, and then we can delve deeper as well and see what's evolved and what's changed.
Sure. Well, I think the most important baseline thing to know is that doing this kind of work was never on my radar. It was never anything that I thought I would grow up to do. I always wanted to be a broadcaster, get on the radio and just be a goofball. I was very clear from a very young age. And so I went to school for that and I graduated and I did like 7 years of that, but it didn't turn out to be the creative outlet that I wanted it to be. And so what I know about me is that I am all about creative self-expression. And it's what I'm helping people to really tap into, whether it's through the law of attraction conversation or through neuroplasticity or any, just transformation. So that's what I think ultimately we're all driven to express what's inside of us to do. And if we don't, then that's when the problems start. So my work is about exploring, why don't we do that? But anyway, so once I left radio, I was started to search for, okay, well, I thought I wanted to do this. What am I going to do? What do I want to do? And that led to jumping around from career to career. Nothing was working. I tried to start businesses. Everything was failing. And that's when I started looking at more metaphysical reasons why my life might be going the way it would. And that's what led me to the law of attraction. So to really compress this story, after quite a while, I had some ahas around the law of attraction, and I started sharing those. And then I kind of went from facilitator of this information in this early version of a program called Wealth Beyond Reason to being more of the conduit of the information. Instead of facilitating other people's information, I was saying, who I want to be is the conduit of this. I want to bring more value to the conversation. And that's when I started having all of these downloads, and the program grew huge. And then that's 3 years of that out there, and the producers of The Secret found it. And so when Rhonda Byrne was looking for people to put in The Secret, I think she was just looking for various angles on the law of attraction, different approaches, different philosophies. And I was just this guy who had kind of stumbled into it. And that's how I got into The Secret. So for 20 something years, I've been teaching and coaching and speaking on the law of attraction. And my focus has been on, how does it work? What's the science behind it? Here's all the technicalities of it, because that's what had me get my own personal ahas. But what I've learned over the course of these 20 years is that people have focused so much on this law of attraction, this magical thing, and trying to get it right and trying everybody's different techniques. They're not focusing on what's most important, and that is, who do they need to be to maintain the vision they're trying to attract? And that's, it was a big aha for me when I just had this realization. And it's not that I didn't know it, but it's understanding on a different level that our reality is created in the moment that we give that moment meaning. Am I enjoying this moment? Have I arrived? Do I like myself? Do I have love? All of it. You're assessing, you're giving meaning to the moment. And all of that meaning is determined by how your brain has been wired over the course of your life. The things you've learned, the beliefs you have, the attitudes, all of it go into that instant meaning making that determines the experience of your reality. So if you're not satisfied with your experience of reality, you have to understand that it's a result of choices you have made, actions you have taken or not taken. And those have been driven by your brain's wiring. So if you want to change your reality, you have to change your wiring, the brain's wiring. And the good news is everybody can do it. You don't have to have any metaphysical belief systems, and you don't have to understand the law of attraction.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks for sharing all that. And I love as well how you shared right at the beginning how it was never on your radar. And that's some of the amazingness as well of life, of the way we can be guided and led if we're willing to follow in that as well. But, what you mentioned as well about we all just want to express what's within us. And, that's true on one level, and everyone kind of searches for this purpose and meaning and, what they are to bring in life. But also there's the bigger picture of we are constantly expressing of what is within us in the first place. But often we're very unconscious of what we hold within because we all have limiting beliefs and programming. So maybe could you talk to that a little bit first? Explaining more on how we all do have certain programming and limiting beliefs, whether we're aware of them or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we haven't arrived at where we are, if we're struggling, if we feel stuck, it is absolutely an indication that we have limiting beliefs somewhere. Something is telling us that not to take that action, or we don't believe that we can do it. Now, how did we get those? So when we're born, our brain is just as plastic as it can be. It's wide open to receive information and the truth. And we don't have discernment at age 0 through whatever 7. We're just taking it all in, whatever we're getting from our parents, from our society, whatever our environmental belief system is, we're taking it in and saying yes, because we don't know we can question it. And because it's just being validated over and over and over in a repetitious way with nothing stopping it, your brain is very easily wired with those beliefs. And that belief system defines your truth. It's the lens through which you see the world. It determines what is possible and what is not possible for you, but it's not universally impossible. It's just you have got wiring that says, I can't do that. So subconsciously, you won't take the actions required to achieve it. But none of that's true. It's just wiring. And just as it was programmed, it can be reprogrammed.
Yeah. Amazing. And I think, it's definitely more and more people are talking about neuroplasticity and it's become more known. But I still think, when you've lived a life for decades of being a certain way, people may struggle to be like, no, but how can I think this is not the truth, or that there is another way, or something else is possible? So how do you help people as well to begin, I suppose, that rewiring process and putting in new information in the first place?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I want to bust up what they just said. It's there's nothing different about learning to be another way than there is learning a new language. It's all the same thing. So if you can learn a new task, and it takes repetition and it takes mistakes and getting it wrong, all of those things, those normal parts of learning a thing, you can learn to be a new version of yourself too.
Yeah.
And it's going to take the same things that it takes to learn a new language: repetition, trying new things, making mistakes, getting feedback, and making adjustments. The problem is if a person is committed to learning a language, they'll see it through. They'll just do whatever they got to do. But in the personal development conversation, somehow we give ourselves a time limit, or if it gets a certain amount of discomfort, we make it mean something, like we're not supposed to have this. And none of that's true.
So then how do people begin to move through that discomfort as well, and actually continue and commit when it comes to making change for themselves?
So they have to make their vision non-negotiable. It has to be a why must I do this? Just like walking was and talking was and learning and all those other things you make non-negotiable. If you make it non-negotiable and you can create a vision for yourself where you really see yourself being this person, achieving those things and having the life you truly want, you should inspire yourself and get to the point where you see why you must do this. It is not an option, and you're going to do whatever it takes to get there. Now, everyone is like, well, I don't know what to do. What do I do? That's where we start using our brain in the way that it was meant to. We have the ability to imagine. We can create scenarios that are not happening in the physical world, and yet we can conjure up, semblance of sights and sounds and visions, and even imagine tastes and smells, and certainly generate the emotions around them. And our brain doesn't know we're not experiencing them. So it's going to behave as if we were, meaning that if we repetitiously send these new conversations, these new visions in with the emotion and all those things you hear in the law of attraction conversation, little by little, the rewiring is going to begin. And particularly if you start taking this vision that's in your head that you're running and seeing yourself being that person and bring it out into the real world and start being that person today. Start taking action that this person in your vision is taking that you're not taking right now. Because there are ways of being that you're going to need to adopt that you don't have now. But with some imagination and using other people for your inspiration, you can start to see the behaviors that you would need to incorporate to get to where you need to go. Now, of course, this is why we have coaching and programs and support, because when anybody goes through this by themselves, they will come up against their wiring, and it's their entire life of wiring, and their wiring wants them to stay just exactly how they are. And so when things get uncomfortable and they get all these messages from their brain about why they can't, shouldn't, won't go forward, they will most likely stop. Unless they have somebody to go, whoa, 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 you're on autopilot. Remember the vision. Remember why. Let's take that uncomfortable action, because that's the only way you're going to get there. You can't just visualize yourself into the future without having the experiences and the knowledge and the wisdom that is a part of the journey to get there. So people need to embrace and be grateful for the discomfort, because it means that they are growing.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It is that growth, that out of the comfort zone, stepping into something new, because if something is known, it's not new to us. So also, I think a reminder that discomfort, that fear, those resistances, the old patterns, I shouldn't do that, or shouldn't do this, or I'm not able to, they're all normal, but they're not reason to stop. So yeah, love that as well.
To speak to what you said about it being normal, people really do need to embrace that. Because as a coach, I have seen over and over people making themselves wrong because they haven't progressed at the speed that they think they should, or they're comparing themselves to others, or because they get triggered in an autopilot way, they start saying, oh, I should know better than this. And the problem is because they're beating themselves up and because they think that there's something abnormal or wrong about this, they're actually digging deeper grooves of neural pathways of defeat and adding to the truth that this won't work for them. So it really takes a huge wake up. The first part of any of the work that I do with people, the bulk of this work is about waking people up, saying, hey, you are being a robot right now to your own wiring. If it's not serving you, let's change it.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And, and even me, when I look back at my life a couple of years ago, I genuinely thought I was awake and present because it was whatever day and I was doing whatever things. But now when I look back, I was like, oh my God, I was never present because I was already 10 steps ahead of myself, worrying about things, anxious,
Hmm.
fearing what would happen, and all these kind of things. Because being in the present moment takes a skill as well, because everything is unknown. We can never know what's going to happen, but we can create. So, how do you help people to get kind of comfortable with the unknown in the first place to begin imagining a new possibility for themselves?
Well, if they can understand that the unknown is part of the growth, I mean, they obviously don't know the thing because they haven't
Mm.
achieved it yet. So that's just part of it, the unknown, and being, just being comfortable with it. Again, it's so much of it is about getting a person really genuinely excited about their vision and
Mm.
getting them to put themselves in it. Like sometimes I'll just ask them questions from the future,
Yeah.
tell me about what you're thinking right now. Tell me about what you're doing and how did you get here and those types of things. I mean, we have to get folks excited about it so that the process becomes fun because guess what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Here's the most woo woo I'll get in this whole conversation. I truly believe that we human beings are the physical extension or a physical extension of the universe, and it's through us that the universe, the ever expanding universe, experiences itself. And we're
Mhm.
born with these incredible, with the imagination and passion and all of these unique things about ourselves, and most importantly, a brain that will allow us to achieve those things. People talk about asking the universe for things, asking the universe for things. And I think it's the other way around. The universe is asking of us. They're asking us to go be this thing that we have been implanted to be. It's going to
Yeah.
be this journey, and not all that's going to evolve, but following that passion and knowing that just the knowledge that if you just keep going, if you keep learning, if you keep meeting the people you need to meet, you just keep taking action, then you will get there.
Mm, yeah, for sure. But it's that old saying as well, many people hold on to, or we hold on to this idea of, oh, I believe it when I see it. But it's like, no, the power of belief, we need to believe it internally first within us, and we will see it. Things have to conform. And I don't know, just when you mentioned the law of attraction there again, I don't know what other teachers, or I'm sure you've come across many in your studies and research and learning and growth since then. But this other concept of law of attraction versus law of assumption. Do you?
I don't have anything to say about the law of assumption. And in fact,
Uh,
here's one of the reasons that I am going down this path and talking about neuroplasticity is
mm-hmm.
because of all of these other conversations. Well, what about the law of reciprocity? All of this and the duality. And now it's like, hey, you don't need to know this.
Mm,
Why are you obsessing over this? All you need to know is that your brain can change. Your brain controls every part of your experience of reality, all of it. That's where you
yeah.
need to be focusing on, and not all this external stuff trying to figure out stuff, because again, I get it. And if learning those types of things helps you take action towards being the person you want to be, great. But what I see is people getting stuck in that
Mm,
and just all these conflict. Well, what about this person? They say it's this. What about this? What about this? It doesn't matter.
yeah. Yeah, it's true. And again, everyone learns in different ways, and whatever helps you to have that final connection. But I know for me, it was massive because I was like, oh, yeah, it's not something outside of me that I'm waiting for. It's all me. And by assuming it's my dominant thoughts create, again, coming back to what I put in and what's circling in my brain is what I'm creating as well all the time. So for me, it did help make a massive shift. But then when you mentioned triggers earlier as well, what's happening in the brain when we're triggered, and what are some tips as well to help people to move through any triggers that they may be experiencing?
So we've all experienced these traumatic moments in our lives of high emotion, these things, and they get in there because it's high emotion and they get wired as memories and they have all of these intricate connections. I mean, the connections that go on in our brain in just a moment, a split second are extraordinary, the dots that
Mm,
are connected. And so all of these triggers, they're all unique to each of us and it's all because of different experiences and the complexity is crazy. The most important thing to know is it's a trigger, and that
yeah.
what you're feeling is this unconscious, it's a result of a bunch of unconscious connections, and they're creating a meaning, and your body is responding with chemistry and you're feeling stuff, but it's all autopilot. And so you don't have to go down that road. It's just the awareness of it is the first key. Like, this is just my autopilot response. Now, you may have heard of, maybe you've talked to other people who talk about release tools like emotional freedom technique. There's the Sedona method. There are many, but these are tools that that I share with folks, and that they're readily available out there to help with those moments of high emotion when your body just sort of takes over and you're feeling flooded and out of control. These techniques allow you to kind of regain control, get present in the moment. Because really, to me, it's about the trigger should be the signal. That's the signal to get present, to get out of your body for a second and look at things from a big picture. Go into observation mode and observe what's going on in your brain. Observe that you are in autopilot response and know that when I respond like this, I know it doesn't get me where I want to go. How would I rather respond? Now, all of that happens in a split second. And if you haven't prepared for that moment, then it's dicey. But that's why, part of my process with working with people, and anybody can do this, is to use our brains to visualize, rehearse, to see ourselves being empowered in these types of situations on an ongoing basis so that when they happen, we know how to be. We've already rehearsed it. It's not like we're caught off guard and we're just knowing that we're in autopilot. Not only do we see it, we have a response ready to go as the new you. And every time you take that action out there in the physical world, it makes that connection even stronger in your brain.
Yeah, I love that. And I know it's not really probably an answerable question, but how quick can our reality conform to our new way of thinking?
Well, let's put it this way. If you occur differently all of a sudden in any given group of people, the workplace, your family, whatever, the first time you show up as a different you, somebody who you've rehearsed, a different way of being, a different energy, you're going to get a different response. So the change begins immediately as soon as you start showing it. Now, how long is before it's permanent? How long before your brain is permanently rewired? See, that no one can answer that. Because no one knows exactly how your brain is wired and how intricate that network is and the various things that need to be untangled. As a coach, I work with people. We find those things over time. And, sometimes people think they had dealt with it and then it shows up again because, again, there's just all these different connections that trigger it. And it may sound cumbersome, but this is the work of transformation. And you go through it to get what you want in your life. Because if you don't, guess what? Your wiring stays the same. Your behavior stays the same. Your results stay the same. And you tell yourself, you give yourself proof. See, I can't do, I can't be, I can't have.
Yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it? And when it comes to the brain as well, is it all just picking up energies and frequencies in the universe and forming the impressions and images that we see in front of us? And that's why we must begin to imagine and visualize something new within so we can see something new on the external as well.
Well, if I was talking today to a crowd, I would leave out the first part about all the energies and all that, and just start with, yes, if we just start doing new things, that's what's going to, again, I wanted this to be clear too. I am not anti-law of attraction. It's not like I don't believe it anymore. In fact, if a person takes on this approach and just goes right to their brain and starts being that person, they're going to see how automatically the law of attraction can work for them and why it's not necessary to obsess over all the techniques all the time and worrying about getting it wrong.
Yeah. And even, I can't remember the name of it exactly. Is it the reactive articulating system or something like that?
Reticular activating system.
Reticular activating system, the RAS. Can you even speak to that as well because again, we're bombarded so much with so much information all of the time that our brain can only take in what we are conscious of or something that we've already come across or know. So isn't that the part of the brain as well, that when we start to think of something new or imagine something new, it will then start to bring that into our awareness?
It brings it into our awareness, right? Because obviously we're getting, like you suggested, there's so much input coming into our brains at any given time. If we weren't filtering it, we would just go freaking insane. It has to be filtered. And some of the filtering and how we see that, how we filter things is based on our wiring and our belief system. And so we see things and we filter it and we see truth one way, and our neighbor sees the same things, goes through a different filter, sees it the other way, and has their own version of truth, and nobody's right.
Yeah. And then, so what's the ultimate truth?
It's what you make it. That's the thing. You get to decide. Every single individual can ultimately decide what their truth is, how they feel about things, the action they're going to take, what they believe, all of it. We all have that. But it doesn't mean we have to
Yeah.
overhaul our entire truth. It's just like we're finding the things that aren't working for us. If we have a truth, so-called truth, that is stopping us from being the full version of ourselves, it is allowing us to rationalize not doing the things, then that's what we can change.
Yeah. And there, like you mentioned back a while back in the conversation as well, that's exactly the piece. If we're not feeling or doing or having or being, exactly what we dream or would fantasize about, even though not fantasizing, that's a clear sign that we have some truths that are not true for us, but we're holding true. So to look at those and to remind ourselves again that we do have that power and we do have that ability to choose and to decide something new, and that we actually get to create the meaning of everything in our lives. And again, often, when it comes back to the programming, we're handed down so much that it feels really true. We don't know it's not true anymore. But again, like you're saying, we can change it. And that's just so empowering again to remind ourselves of that.
Here's
Yeah.
another thing that I want to get out there. If they can just get this, it can be a huge, huge help. You do not have to have in order to be. You don't have to have in order to be. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say a person has done whatever work on themselves, or maybe they're just naturally great at making money. They've amassed a fortune. They've done all the things. They've taken the action. They've created the value. They are who they are being is a wealthy person. That's what they're wired to be. Like, money is not a big deal. Okay. We got this. That's who they are. They're being it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if something happens and they suddenly lose all their money, it's an accident, something devastating happens. It happens sometimes. They are still a wealthy person. That's who they are. And they will go right back. They will just continue to take the actions that they've always taken, and therefore they will reamass their wealth. They don't have to have it to be it.
Mm-hmm.
And neither do you. So if you don't have a bunch of wealth or whatever the thing is, your vision, you can still be the person to whom that belongs. And then the universe, if you will catch up. You be it, the universe will respond, and it will come to you. It's not the other way around. It can't be. There's no logic to it if you would just think it through.
Exactly. And, we're always manifesting or attracting or being or having things that maybe we have thought of before, but often we can, we're always a match for something, but sometimes it's what we want, other times not. But when it comes to often the big things like money or career or relationship or something, we often have so much resistance because we constantly keep looking at our reality going, but I don't have evidence of it. So that's really important that you say again, just to remind people that we be it in advance. And what would be some examples of that to help people think, well, how do I act like I'm rich if I'm struggling to pay bills each month?
Okay, so in your vision, how are you rich? What are you doing? So this is going to be unique to anybody. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be an author. I wanted to do that, whatever. So you take the actions that person would do every day. Like, if you want to be rich because you're a writer and you freaking write every day because that's what a writer does. You do the things that successful person does. And if you don't know what those things are, you go out and you study it, just like you would study how to speak a new language or learn how to cook a new food. You have to go out and do it. You attain the knowledge. You do not wait for the universe to insert it matrix style into your brain. You and the universe, it's all one thing. So you move, the universe moves. It's a dance.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. And again, just the reminder, the only way through anything or to know anything is action, 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 always. Like, we can think, we can plan, we can do whatever, but we have to do practical action steps as well to get us there. So what are some of your favorite techniques or some things that you used, whether you still use them now or not, that really helped you to, I suppose, expand or elevate in new ways?
Well, in terms of so the hardest part of this journey is all the emotion that comes up and all that noise. So anything like EFT, any of these release techniques, and I use several of them. There's different ones for different levels of stuff, if you will, that we recommend. But using those helps me glide through those processes. But here's the thing: if you use release techniques enough, if you learn what it feels like to release, it becomes way more automatic, because you're releasing something because you think if it's stuck in there, you think it's because it should be stuck in there. There's all kinds of reasons why things get stuck. But once you release it, then you're free.
Yeah. And, the emotional side of things as well, just what you've shared, it obviously makes sense, but also how necessary is it if we're consciously just focusing on putting in new visions, new affirmations, whatever, into our brain, acting as if we are that person? How necessary is it to do deep emotional work as well?
If the emotion comes up and is stopping you, that's when to do it. If it's not, then you don't worry about it. I mean, this is another thing. I think a lot of people fixate on their issues and then they define themselves by them. Oh, I'm working on my abundance issues. I'm
Yeah.
working on my trust issues. I'm doing EFT every day. And then they're becoming a person who's working on themselves. That's a wired mode too. Just the person who's always seeking.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And again, it's the truth of, well, we can decide to debug that and decide something new in any moment as well. But again, that's the work and the learning. And I know you've developed many tools and methods for helping people as well, but you also have a personality quiz, a transformation personality quiz. So if you want to talk about that a little bit as well and how it can help people to understand more about themselves and how it may be best for them to make transformation.
Yeah. So the purpose of the quiz is to shine a light on your autopilot behavior.
Mm.
So the way that we do that is, and just based on my 20 years of working with people, I've sort of identified these types when it comes to transformation. This is not your personality types like DISC or something. This is my own gauge based on my own experience. But when a person takes this quiz and identifies their type, it helps both of us. It helps
Mm.
me learn how do I best coach them, or what are the things I'm going to be looking for in terms of reframing, what are their autopilot behaviors? And it gives them the same information, because awareness is the first step. You have to know what your autopilot
Mm.
wiring is to change it. So the quiz is free. It's 60 seconds. It's multiple choice. Could not be easier. But what you get is your personality type and how that type might be slowing you down, how traits of that type might be slowing you down. It does not mean that if you are this type that there's a problem or that it's going to stop you. But if you are feeling stopped, if you do feel like you're sabotaging yourself, if you don't know why things aren't working, this tool can really help you go, okay, yes, I do that. And then we give you some ideas on how do you work with that? What can you change? So that's because, again, that's the very first step. You have to know what your autopilot wiring is if you're going to change it.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's it's a simple tool, but it can give you like critical information.
Yeah. And I will share it as well in the show notes as well if anyone wants to do it. And I've done it and it is really interesting, and the information you share as well afterwards. And then just even as a final question, maybe for the transitions we've been going through for the last 2 years and that, what's your vision for humanity and even through the work that you're doing in helping people to remember their own power? What's your vision going forward for us all, for the world?
Mm-mm. That's a really interesting question. I mean, I really feel like most of the problems of the world get solved if everybody can just be who they're here to be and not
Mm.
feel like they have to control other people in order to get that or whatever. I mean, it's just a basic thing that
Yeah.
if we were born here following our passions, doing the thing that was in us, and we didn't have to harbor resentment against anyone or any community or any group because we couldn't be that, we wouldn't have many of the problems we have today. How soon can that happen? Wow, man, I have no idea. So my vision is for myself, as many people as I can reach and wake up, that's what I want to do. I was super blessed to be a part of The
Mm.
Secret, especially given the fact that nobody knew who the heck I was before that thing, because I was just this radio guy out of work, for 3 years before, right before that. And then I had these ahas. So if I've got this platform, my passion, what really drives me the most is people expressing themselves creatively or otherwise. I really feel like it's all creative, whether it's a business, whether it's a relationship, or whether it's art or drama or music or whatever. It's all in us. We're creative beings. And if we
Yeah.
don't create, we're going to feel it. And that's when resentment and anger and all of this shows up. So if we
Yeah.
could just, it's a big vision because first of all, we all got to be on board. And then we got
Hmm.
to start teaching our children different things about what's possible. We have to
Yes.
and here's the thing that I have seen since The Secret came out, it's almost 15, 16 years ago, whatever it is. Now I'm being interviewed by people who were kids then.
Wow.
Okay, kids. And they grew up with this kind of thought, more unlimited thinking and being able to vision and have visions and trust that they could have it. These people are very different than us. They see the world differently. They have different levels of possibility, and they're lights. They're lights that we need. So there is hope.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there definitely is new levels of consciousness, and people are getting the information, and it's more readily available as well. But people are like not just intellectually understanding it, but really comprehending it and living it for sure. And I attach to that hope as well. And even when you just said we are creative beings, a line from the Course in Miracles popped into my head. And the thing is, we are, and we're constantly creating, but we can be creatively destructive when we are not in the driving seat of our life. And I think that's why it's so important that we all remember this and have these conversations and start doing the work, realize it is all us, but that's okay, because we actually have so much power and we can change any brain pattern that we have been programmed with. So thank you so much, Bob, for joining today. I really enjoyed it. And please, if there's anything else you feel left to share, please do. And please also share where people can find out more in your work.
It's never too late to do this. That's the most important thing to know. You can always learn something new no matter where you are. Maybe you're not as plastic as when you were 0 to 7, but you can still learn if you truly want.
Yeah.
Aside from taking the quiz at tptquiz.com, you can see all things Bob Doyle at meetbobdoyle.com. That's a great sort of hub for all the things I'm doing, and I'm super easy to find on Facebook and Instagram and those types of things as well.
Amazing. Thank you. And as always, I will have links from the show notes as well to your quiz and to your website and socials and everything as well, so people can find them easier. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.